Dreaming is a process of communication that all human beings participate in. In our culture, dreaming is not well understood, but through the MAPS process, it is possible to really understand that dreaming will tell you exactly where a person needs to go in their life and also what it is that they have to contribute along the way to the people that they play with and work with and learn with. In other words, if we become very good at listening to what a person's dream is, we become very good at supporting them to find their way in life. Many cultures have understood that dreaming is an essential part of being a human being. In those cultures, people often spend time sitting around and just talking to each other about what it is they would like to do in their lives. But in our culture, most dreaming is done through a process of fantasy. So, for example, for many years, I had the fantasy that I would love to be a truck driver. And my truck was a very, very high-tech truck, one of these very large, more than 18-wheeler gigs that has a bed in the back, so you don't have to stop on the road. And and the purpose of my truck was to drive things from Toronto to California, and I get lots of money for doing this, and I'd work for 6 months of the year. And the rest of the year I would not have to work because I would make that much money. And what I would do with the rest of the year is I would rest and reflect and do other things. Anyway, the point is that this was my fantasy. And I used to be very embarrassed about this fantasy because obviously I'm not going to be a truck driver. But over the years, I met a number of people who don't use words. And they began to teach me to really pay attention to what I was dreaming about. They taught me because they taught me that they could really communicate with other people even though they weren't using words. So I began to look for where is this communication coming from. So I finally got over my embarrassment about my fantasy and I began to tell it to other people. Now I have a very strong support circle. And my support circle listened to my dream. And what we figured out very easily was that my dream had these seeds in it. The seeds are that my work is very important to me, that I want to get around. In fact, I want to get around the whole continent as part of my work, that I want to be bringing something to people that's very important to the people that I'm bringing it to, and that I want to make enough money by doing my work that I can spend time at home resting, reflecting, and learning other things to bring to people. I now travel internationally talking to people about how we can support all of our diversities so that we have gifts to contribute to each other in society. My dream has come true, and my life is very satisfying to me. It's also a life of contribution to other people, and all the information that we needed was in that dream about my being a truck driver. So what this has to do with maps is that in the maps process, we listen to what the person's dream is. We listen with ears that don't say, oh, this is very unrealistic, this could never come true. No, we listen with ears that are listening for what are the themes of life that are very important to this person. What do these themes mean to that person? And as we disclose what those themes are, then we can ask everybody in the room to say, what are some ways that we can actually have these themes, these ideas, these seeds that are in the dream? What are some of the ways that we can have these seeds planted in our community right now and at work? How can we be at work with this dream right now? What are some ways that we can do that? This is where the other side of the dreaming comes to reality. because in the seeds of the dream are the ideas about what are the gifts that this person has to contribute to other people. The problem with most kinds of planning around people who are vulnerable, either because they've been labeled physically disabled or labeled mentally handicapped or whatever it is, or perhaps labeled behaviorally disordered or very ill. The problem with most kinds of plannings is that we focus on what's wrong with the person or with their family. And as we focus on what's wrong with them, what we end up is with ways that we try to fix them, but no way to move forward in that person's life. And very often you end up getting stuck. With maps, we're not looking at what's wrong with the person. What we're looking at is what is it that this person is trying to contribute to other people in his or her community. What are the gifts that this person has that the community needs, and that if the community has, it will grow richer and grow stronger. So the dream has in it the seeds of the person's gifts. In my dream and the truck driver's dream, my getting around and giving things to other people is a very important part of my gift. And in fulfilling that gift, I actually employ other people because, you see, I hired 5 other people to help me get around the country. And I use a van, so I'm paying repairs on those vans, and I'm buying the van, and I use airline tickets, so I'm keeping the airlines in business like thousands of other people. But those are part of my gifts. Those are part of my contribution to other people. So in the dream, what we will find is something about that person that will be a real contribution to other people. It's often something that's very, very simple, but it's a solid beginning. Like, many people will disclose that their gift is that they really like to make other people happy, for example. And if we use that gift, then we have somebody who's going to be a really great generator of relationship in the community. But whatever the gift is, we then have the opportunity to sit down together in the circle in the MAPS process and say, okay, how can we use these gifts, these particular gifts in the community?
No matter who you are or where you're going, you're bound to face a few bumps in the road. An obstacle here, a detour there, and before you know it, you have no idea where you are. Life has become complex. With more choices, more options, and more opportunities, it's impossible to get where you want to go without the right map. You need a clear vision of your destination and good directions on how to get there. To develop effective plans, individuals, families, and organizations are looking for creative solutions. Skilled facilitators help people examine the key issues and concerns in their lives in an effort to help them develop clear objectives and realize their own dreams. To be effective, facilitators need the right tools to do the job. 2 innovative planning tools are MAPS and PATH. Both are similar in design and implementation, but are applied to different situations. The MAPS process provides an opportunity to gather information and examine general issues. In most situations, the issues appear complex, but solutions can easily fall into place. Often, after conducting a map, the plan of action is obvious. But when situations become more difficult and involve complex personal and organizational issues with no clear plan of action, PATH is often a more effective tool. A map can be an effective first step and can provide an accurate direction, but a path may be necessary to develop a precise plan of action based on a specific need. Both maps and path are techniques contained in the Creative Facilitators Toolkit, a comprehensive set of tools designed for facilitators. The new MAPS training video builds on the lessons we've learned in using the process in many different situations over the past decade. Traditionally, MAPS has been used to explore educational issues, but as you'll see today, the applications are far broader. The new MAPS training video will help facilitators learn to use this powerful process in many different situations.
Hello, I'm Marcia Forrest.
And I'm Jack Deerpoint. We're here to examine the MAPS process. We're going to use segments from a map we shot with Shafik. Shafik's a community organizer and human rights activist in Philadelphia. And we're going to use segments from this map to demonstrate the principles of the MAPS process.
What you're going to see is John O'Brien as the facilitator of the MAPS process. John, along with Judith Snow, Jack, and myself, are the developers of the MAPS process. And David Hasbury is the graphic recorder in this Shafik video.
As we're starting a map, the location is very, very important. We want it to be laid back, relaxed, comfortable for people. So sitting around a board table isn't a great idea. It's important that there will be a graphic and people face it, that we want to be able to see the color as it emerges and interact with it. And people want to be able to see each other face to face. So creating a comfortable location where people can talk to each other is really essential to an effective map.
Now, the first question everyone asks is, who should attend a map? Well, the answer is it could be 2 people, it could be 22 people, but the best people to attend are people who know the person or who know the organization best. In this case, Shafik invited Shana, who's his wife, Bahia, who's his very best friend and most important colleague, and much to our honor, he invited Jack and I to participate in this, his map.
Is there a way that's regular for you to start a meeting like this, to get people kind of centered on what's going on and get people started?
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think is important for people to do by way of knowing who is around them is to visualize a symbol that is their symbol and explain themselves in relationship to the symbol, and I would like to do that. And I'd like to start off with that. And my symbol is this one, is my marriage ring, my marriage piece, and it's a symbol of an Ankh, which represents eternal life. And in that, personally right now, I'm in a struggle for life. I think that it is appropriate that I start off by offering this symbol to my collective and introduce myself in relationship to my goal being to stay alive and to stay healthy, because I got a lot of work to do.
In terms of symbols, I think for me right now, this one that I wear around my neck is most important to me. It has the turquoise stone, which is a healing stone. And I also have some things that I'm dealing with in terms of my life. And it's special to me that I wear it. And it gives me power. It gives me strength.
When I came out of my breast cancer surgery 5 years ago, Jack put this around my neck. And it's the only piece of jewelry that I wear. And for me, it's a healing circle.
The symbol I like to offer is the symbol of my chains, because these represent, to me, among a lot of other things, my connectedness to Shafik, and that a lot of who I am and where I am in my life today is because we have met and because we are partners and are traveling this journey together.
It's a Mari pendant. Its translation is binder of people. The MAPS process is a creative, facilitated process. It's exploratory. It gathers information and organizes it about a person or an organization. In this case, a good facilitator has to get people relaxed, has to demystify it, get people ready for the map. In Shafik's case, we are charting unmapped, unknown territory. So it's a very exciting adventure.
We have a very simple process to work through, and we call it a map. And I think there's two kinds of maps. One kind of map is where you're trying to figure out how to get from here to somewhere that's already located on the map. And most of the ones that we do, we know where we're going. We know that we're going to end up with somebody in school where they belong, or we know that we're going to end up with somebody in a home or in a job where they belong. And that's a kind of map where the main thing we're trying to do is relate the person to the setting. This is a different kind of map, I think. What we're trying to do, I think, is to see through your understanding in bringing these people together today what kind of map we want to draw of a territory that we don't have a very good chart for.
Many people ask, what does MAP stand for? A map is a tool. It's a creative tool to help a person or an organization get to where they want to go. It's not an acronym. It's simply what any map does. It gives direction.
How you set up a map session will affect its success. An informal setting will make everyone comfortable. Invite the people who are close to the person or issue. Put the participants at ease by explaining and demystifying the process.
Shafik is a human rights activist and community organizer in Philadelphia. He's been struggling with cancer for nearly 20 years. In this video segment, he's gathered together friends, colleagues, people who love him and support him. And the purpose is to create a jigsaw, to put together all the pieces of the vision of his life.
Somewhere along the pike, I felt I had a right to choose anything, to choose life, to choose friends, to choose family. And I want to say that the people also gathered here with me are my chosen family. And they bring to me a consciousness, of course, my wife, who I intend to go deep into the future with, my most permanent sister. We do not have the same mother or the same father, but she is my most permanent sister, and stability. I asked Jack and Marsha to join me because they have become family that is unbelievable to me. They are people that I know that if I needed anything and I made the call, that they would come, that things would be dropped and they would come. They know that I would not make such a call unless it was a most just call, that it wouldn't just do it to do it, but that it would be a just call. We are also part of, I'd like to introduce from the very beginning, a village, the village of Kumbaya in Philadelphia, which is our other circle of support in Philadelphia. And Kumbaya in Swahili means come by here. And it is our pledge to come by one another when we need one another, and to be supportive of one another at any cost, at any risk. We see ourselves as a village with 9 tribes. Some people see us as an organization with 9 committees.
In this case, in Shafik's map, what you see is the dream, the nightmare, and the history all intertwined. And it's up to the facilitator to really listen hard to get those pieces and to make sure that all those pieces come out. There have been times when Jack and I have been facilitating a map when we just can't get the history, and it's a clue that's something underneath that. And it's very, very, very important for us to keep probing to make sure that we bring out that story, because without the story, you really don't have the map.
And part of that is that the facilitator has to create a safe place for the person to tell their story. You have to create an environment, you have to create an invitation, so it's okay for them to tell their story however they tell it. And keep in mind that most people don't remember their stories with a strict chronology. You can put that in later. What you have to do is get the essence of the story, get the milestones, get the meaningful bits.
There's also a history to any organization. So if you're doing an organizational map, it's exactly the same thing. And the story of the organization, when people came in, when people came out, is critical to getting into the next phases of a map.
Out of that came a war that came at me called cancer, that wiped me out, that made me now understand that comfort was primary if I was going to continue my work. It was difficult to work with the amount of pain that I had in my body. It was difficult to be a part of people with the amount of pain that was in my head, in my spine, my left hip, my right shoulder, that I realized that if I was going to do anything else, I had to find a way to get comfortable.
It can be an intimidating experience sharing personal feelings with a group of people. So put the person at ease and make them comfortable. On the other hand, don't allow the story to turn into a saga. Put a time limit on it.
Linking of dreams and nightmares is universal wisdom, and we've chosen the dream catcher as an example of this. This is an Aboriginal dream catcher, but it makes the point that's so true in Shafik's map. Within the dream catcher, the webbing here snags nightmares, which we all have, but we also have dreams, and the dreams trickle through the gross webbing within a dream catcher and get caught in the feathers, which are so delicate that their delicacy is the secret of capturing and retaining our dreams. And so, in life, and this is the wheel of life, we have both dreams and nightmares. And in the maps process, we need to acknowledge both. It's not one or the other, it's the two together that are required in a person's story.
And in this video, you see the merging in Shafik of the dream and the nightmare. But in many cases, that's not true. And in many cases, what the facilitator has to do is invite the dream and invite the nightmare. And even in Shafik's map, you'll see John make very discreet the difference between the dream and the nightmare.
The dream for me is in the very next chapter. And are we talking about the next chapter? Just the next chapter? Is two things: to see both of my sons that I've already spoken about. For one, my oldest, my 16-year-old, to go into flight and sustain his flight. That he figures out what he needs and what he needs to create and who he needs to sustain his flight. That he not be dependent, but understand interdependence. And secondly, for my youngest son, Corey, to be treated with full respect and the recognition of his great abilities outside of a special education classroom. Those are my dreams for the next chapter. I don't dream of anything in reference to Shana and I because it's already written and established. We will be and we will be fine.
You've said what you dream for Tahir and what you dream for Corey. What do you dream for yourself in this chapter?
To be alive, because that's not so certain, particularly with my cancer beginning to act up in several places on my body right now. 2 separate places actually, and that's never happened before as I remember it. So to be alive, to keep growing, keep developing, keep moving, even while being radiated, even while taking chemotherapy, to not say, oh, poor me, and stand still, but also not to be in denial, but to be honest to what we believe. These are challenges that are to be confronted. If overcome, move on. If not overcome, slow down a little bit. If victory is not there, then that means defeat is there, and it ends the story. So I don't want us to be stuck I am, and again, I'm not denying that I have major medical problems, health problems, but I don't want to be stuck. I would feel defeated if I had to lay in my bed again for months and months and months, or if I have to live in an institution like I had to for 7 months, with everybody else taking care of me, strangers I'm talking about, which I had to do in 1974, to live in an institution because they told me I had cancer, and they told me I could not walk, and they told me I couldn't do anything. And at the point that I stopped believing them, I'm doing all that I do now. So I don't want to be there again. So my dream is to sustain and build upon what we already have, to keep going, to keep moving, to stay alive, physically and ideologically, keep new ideas flowing.
But if I heard it right, in this community, the chance of you going back to an institution are zero.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So in terms of being stronger and knowing that that's there, it's there.
Yeah.
That doesn't resolve it, but some of the stress in past history is ancient history. We're beyond that.
So I collapse or intertwined dream and nightmare.
It's vital that one of the members of the facilitation team play back the dream, synthesize it, summarize it. And what you're doing is checking to see if it's all there, checking to see if you've actually got it right. Helpful things to do are to ask people if the colors are right or the shapes are right, whatever it is. Ask people to touch it. Because often people in the process of trying to remember have forgotten absolutely critical elements. And as you play it back, they'll suddenly blossom with a vital part that was either underplayed or totally left out. So play it back so it becomes theirs.
We have a funny sense of dream because our dream includes the possibility of your death. And we've put it in the dream circle. And one of the ways that possibility realizes itself in this chapter is a real clear focus on wanting to be sure that both Tahir and Corey have the best chance that they can to fly and to find their place.
Listen closely, and you'll often find the nightmare hidden in the dream. The facilitator recaps the dream so that it's clear and focused. The dream serves as a beacon for the map.
The hardest question for facilitators to ask in a map is, what's your nightmare? Now, the reason people find this very hard to ask is that very, very often they haven't gone through it themselves in terms of what is your dream and what is your nightmare. If a facilitator hasn't practiced on themselves, and particularly this question, they should not do a map, because without the nightmare question, there really isn't a map. Now, we've heard people say, but can't we say what's your fear, or can't we say what's your biggest concern, and our answer is no. We're using the word nightmare as in the dream catcher for a very, very important point.
The nightmare actually grounds the whole map. It provides a foundation point, because the ultimate purpose is we want to move away from the nightmare and toward the dream. So if we don't actually establish the nightmare, and when we do it, put boundaries around it. We don't have to dwell on it. Just give it a clear statement, put it out in the open, name it, and then the map can proceed.
A skilled facilitator always does this question quite quickly. It's not a matter of spending hours on it. It's state it, and then we move on to the next part of the map.
It's uncomfortable. You don't have to dwell on it, but you have to state it.
My nightmare is that I would be alive in this chapter without life. That I cannot do everything I do right now, whether I'm missing an arm, whether I'm missing a leg. The only thing I'm concerned about losing is my mouth. I'm being very honest.
Yes.
If they have to amputate a leg or two,
Right.
if they have to take an arm, I just want to be able to run my mouth, to talk,
Yes.
to share all that is in my head.
Yes.
That it is, if I can't do that, my nightmare becomes real.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It has to be there.
The next question, the who is the person or who is this organization, almost is part 2 of the map. You've really done the slugging hard work of getting through the dream and the nightmare and the story. And now we're saying, who is this person? And you want a rich portrait of the person or the organization. Now, sometime we'll ask, what do other people say about this person, and get a whole list of labels. The purpose of the who is question is to get away from labels and to get into a description of who the person is, and I would say without labels.
So in the video, Shafik is described by Shana as could be as hyperactive or all kinds of things, but instead of that, she simply says he's intense, and that's the truth. He is. It's wonderful, but he is intense, and that's the kind of rich portrait we're really looking for. Who is the person?
We don't want somebody saying, oh, the person is schizophrenic, the person is autistic, the person is severely something. That doesn't give us any information on which to go into the future. So again, who is the person? Rule number 1, no jargon, no labels.
He's intense. He's real intense. And sometimes his intensity is frightening. I mean, you know, I would like him sometimes to be a little less intense. I know that his intensity is because he is so committed, you know, to things. You know, he has a saying, I don't say things because I'm right. I say them because it's what I feel. And he feels with great intensity, and it can be really, really scary. And I think a lot of times that adds to his cancer acting up. I know it does, because he is so intense, because he is so emotional.
Think about how you would describe the person to someone who has never met them. What are they like? What do they enjoy? What do they do? Keep it positive and in real terms.
We also like to take a second cut at who is this person by focusing on a very simple, you know, what are their gifts? And what we mean by that is, what are they really good at? What's unique? What's extraordinary about this person? What makes them just the best who they can possibly be? Because so often we forget that, and we ignore something that's absolutely spectacular. And what we're looking for is, what is that essence?
The word here is also, what does this person contribute? I like the word contribution when we talk about gifts. And I remember an example when we were working with some high school students, and there was one student who didn't do very much. And they said, well, she couldn't talk, and she couldn't do this, and she couldn't do that. And the other students said, she's a great listener. She has a great smile. That was that person's contribution. That was that person's gift. And in this day and age, being a good listener is truly a great gift. But nobody had ever seen that before, and it was one of those magic moments.
But I know that as far as the people in his life, he's going to always give recognition to those people that he cares about, because that's who he is. He's going to always give, not just people he cares about, he's going to give attention to people in Nicaragua or El Salvador, anywhere, you know, anywhere where there is pain, you know, anywhere in the world where there is pain, it's a problem for him. You know, he says, as long as I'm comfortable and other people aren't, I'm going to always feel pain, you know, because everybody should be comfortable, not just me, not just my family, but everybody should.
Generate a list of the person's strengths, gifts, and talents. What makes them truly unique?
At this point, we get to the needs question. And in revisiting the map, we've really switched this. And it's not what does Shafik need to do. This now becomes the interdependent question. What do we all need to do together to help Shafik avoid his nightmare, and get to his dream. So the word here now is interdependence, not the Lone Ranger riding off into the sunset, but a circle of friends, a group of people interdependently trying to figure out what to do in fairly complex situations.
So what we're trying to avoid is some of the traps that we slipped into before, where people actually ended up at this point bureaucratizing it and creating a list of what somebody else needs to do to whatever they need to do. And what we really want is to switch it. What do we need to do to help this person achieve their dream, avoid their nightmare, to explore their gifts, to be the best they possibly can? And so it's a major shift from what do they need to do to what do we need to do to help them. In the middle of it, they've obviously got lots of things that they have to do. But the focus is what do we have to do together, interdependently, to help them achieve their dream and avoid their nightmare? That's the question.
And it really is the essence of the map, which is that together, any group, any family is better than any one person alone. So the line, together we're better, leaps out at us at this point in the map.
Obviously, I need to pay better attention to my health, to take a time out every now and then, pay a little bit of attention to the demon radiation. You know, I need to acknowledge that when I feel pain, I should feel pain, and I try to cover it, feel it, deal with it, toss it.
And one of his friends once told him, you know, put yourself on your agenda, you know, take, you know, and I like to remind him, you know, of that and reiterate what she said, you know, to do that, you know, put yourself on your agenda. And there are times when I forget to, you know, that he is like that. And I know there are times when I give him reason to be intense. And I know those are some of the things that I need to give attention and recognition to as well. But those are the things that I would say were really important. Yeah, I love you too.
This isn't a time to tell others what they need to do. Instead, identify the support a person needs to move towards their dream and away from their nightmare. Specify what actions we can take to help the person achieve their dream.
The final question in the MAPS process is, now what are we going to do? What's our plan of action? And if we've done a really good job facilitating the process, we have this rich tapestry of information, and the plan of action leaps right out at us. It's right there. And we often say, well, why didn't we see that before? The reason we didn't see it before is that we didn't have all the relevant information collected.
Occasionally what happens is that even with all that information, we can't see the answer. In those instances, what we've done is developed a second tool called PATH. And it's a very, very precise tool that's designed to cut through even very, very complex problems and get us to a very structured plan of action. But in the most of the instances, we now have the information and we know what to do. So the second part of that is the facilitator's task, which is to get everybody committed to who's going to do what, when, and where. And we want to be sure that everybody's locked into their commitment very nicely, so that everybody has somebody who's coaching them and reminding them and signing up, so that everybody actually gets on with and delivers on their commitment to the plan of action.
Some level of harassment of you about paying some attention to yourself is probably a real contribution to your ability to do that.
It's going to happen anyway.
Yeah, so live with it is the message. Get used to it. They got to live with a lot of intensity. You've got to live with their loving you and wanting you to survive and having an idea about how that happens. That's different than yours. We've also got some work to do in terms of some sense of a future for the village and for New African Voices Alliance. And particularly, and something that we can begin to attend to within the next couple days, is a kind of an initial path that's not how does Corey get to school, but how do we join together to make sure that Corey has the opportunity to be as influential in Philadelphia as his father.
That's some people's nightmare.
The facilitator must enroll the participants. Make sure they're committed and will follow through. Write down the plan, summarize it, and have everyone sign off on the graphic. Assure commitment to action by making entries in calendars, sending everyone a picture of the map, or by forwarding summary notes.
In summary, and for all of the people that want to be facilitators, we basically have one rule and 3 guidelines. The one rule is very simple. It's the golden rule. It's the golden rule of maps. Don't do a map to other people unless you have experienced a map on yourself, on your own family, unless you've gone through the dreaming and listening, because unless you're vulnerable yourself, particularly to the dreams and the nightmares, you can't ask another person to do that if you yourself haven't done it. Now the guidelines, the first guideline is asking all the questions.
And what you have to do is ask all the questions. Not most of the questions, all the questions. The ordering, you can be creative because people will mix and match. But as a facilitator, you have to listen for all of them, play them back, and be sure that all that content is in. And then you have a full map. That's what we're looking for.
The second guideline is using a graphic.
We use a graphic because it turns on a whole other part of your brain. As the graphic recorder creates the images of the dream and the nightmare and the story, something happens with people. They're able to see the whole portrait, and a whole other reality emerges. It turns on another part of our own reality. So a graphic is not an incidental part of a map. It's critical. It's the essence of the map.
And the final guideline is having co-facilitation.
Co-facilitation means 2. Don't do it alone. There's lots of reasons. There's safety in numbers. You won't get into hot water if you have a team. And we're trying to model teamwork on everything. So co-facilitation is an answer. The last thing we want to do in a map is we need to get closure. And the simplest way to do it is to have final words, final images from all the participants. And so that's what we're about to do with Shafik's map.
This has been really good for me because it's really focused. I think in a way that discussions are hard to do. It's focused in on the things that are key and on what the next directions need to be.
A lot of stuff is going to happen, and we'll deal with the rest because we're really powerful together.
I'm amazed at the clarity that I think we have in terms of direction.
It's been wonderful for me to be able to see his past, and our past, and also see our now, to see it visually in front of me in colors, and it's just beautiful.
Now, to me, what we've done here is complete. As Shana said, I need then to simply say, in reference to what is out of the room, is my mentor, Judith Snow, who taught me something very fabulous that I will never forget and never fail to say. And that is, while waking up is an end to sleep, waking up does not have to end your dream.
Today we have options like we've never had before. Email, home-based work, e-commerce, web-based education. It all adds up to new ways to live, work, and interact. And while it creates new opportunities for many, it also adds to the complexity of life. Complexities that can be overwhelming. Maps is a planning tool that can be used with individuals or organizations to help sort through the complexities of day-to-day life in an effort to create a clear vision and a clear roadmap towards that vision. Maps was created by Marcia Forrest, John O'Brien, and Jack Pierpoint out of the need to find solutions to support people with disabilities.
About 25 years ago, many of us were meeting in frustration trying to figure out how we could help people become part of regular society, be full citizens. We noticed that most of them were alone. Some of them were disabled, lots of people had literacy issues, they were left out. When we noticed they were alone, we began to gather people around them, to build community. And we asked them to tell their story. As they told their stories, one after another, we realized that every story had power and direction, and it turned into maps. It became a process for listening to people to develop their community.
MAPS isn't an acronym. MAPS is a metaphor, and it's based on a fairly simple notion that if you happen to know where you are, and if you know where you've been, and you know where you want to go, then gathering together a group of people, together you can come up with the direction to go in. And it's based on what all our work is based on, which is that together we're better, and all really does mean all.
While the concept behind MAPS is simple, the basic premise has deep roots. For centuries, Aboriginal people from all parts of the world have taught and inspired their youth through the power of stories. Personal stories passed on from generation to generation have been key to providing the roots to Native communities. Today, many people live their lives without an opportunity to share their feelings and dreams with those closest to them. And many people feel increasingly isolated. MAPS has the power to restore dreams, to provide direction while building relationships and strengthening community.
MAPS is a way to gather your own story together. And one of the things that makes it different from other approaches to planning is that you can't do it alone.
What makes MAPS unique is it is a person-centered process, and it focuses almost entirely for its strength and clarity on the story of the person. You gather people around. So by its very nature, it's a community builder. And the invitation to gather people to listen to the story and to work to a plan of action is a very powerful component. Another issue is that it uses a graphic. You collectively create a portrait of the future for that person. That's different and extraordinarily powerful.
Callie is a 17-year-old girl who has celiac disease and complex juvenile diabetes. In addition to participating in her sister's map, Callie recently had her own map completed with 17 of her friends. She not only found the process exhilarating, but felt it strengthened her relationship with her friends.
The whole flow of the energy that just happens with the map is the really big important thing for me, I think. The energy that I feel for myself, just like, oh my goodness, yes, I just told my story. I feel wonderful. You know, even if not everyone in the room listened, a couple people did, you know, and it touched a couple people, and I connected to some people, and it just made it all worthwhile. And then they, in return, connected to me and connected to each other and said, oh, you know, in that struggle of yours, I've done that too. In your dream, I can relate. In your nightmare, oh yeah, I can relate. And it's a way to connect. So I think for a lot of different reasons, the map for me, yes, it focuses and it directs, but it's also a wonderful way to connect to people.
The Michigan Department of Education uses MAPS with many of its students with disabilities. The process helps foster a positive relationship between the school staff and families and provides a number of unique benefits.
I think it's a good opportunity for some two-way communication and to hear other people's perspective on the gifts of the child and the family, and for the family to hear what other people think about their child and how they see their child. It's also a good tool to really use to be able to listen to the family, what the family is saying, and to get at what the values of their family is and what makes them unique and how they operate as a family.
While MAPS has its origin in education and with people with disabilities, it's been used quite successfully in many other areas.
Maps can be used by anybody, anywhere, and in fact it is being used by people everywhere in the world. It's being translated into many different languages. Maps, of course, can be used with people with disabilities. It's been used brilliantly on that front to help people find direction. But we've also used maps with groups of architects, groups of family physicians, groups of just plain people who are struggling to figure out direction in their lives. It's based on finding that vision and deciding whether you want to go in the direction of that vision. And that's up to the people or the individuals involved. It's a very exciting process to be involved in.
If you're organizing a MAP session, there are 2 hard and fast rules that must be followed without exception. First, 2 people must facilitate a map, and second, every step of the process must be covered. It requires 2 facilitators to run a map. A process facilitator directs the discussion, while the graphic facilitator records the process and probes for clear ideas. Participating in a map is an extremely personal and vulnerable experience. While each facilitator has a distinct role, 2 facilitators provide a balanced perspective and can provide the attention required to interact with the person sensitively.
One of the unique features of a map is that it is co-facilitated. That means there's 2 facilitators. There's a graphic recorder who's creating a beautiful, colorful, real picture of what is coming from the group or the individual. And there's a process facilitator. And that person is in constant eye contact with the person or the group and is pulling information from the person, never giving, never interpreting, never assuming, but always just pulling for what's real, what's alive at the moment for this person or for the group.
We like to insist on 2 facilitators because it's critical to create a safe place to hold a person's story. Their story is their soul, their heart, and we have to create this sacred trust to hold it. One person needs to interact with the person visually. The other needs to create a portrait. When we do that, the risk of doing harm diminishes. So we need to create a safe place.
MAPS is an 8-step process, and when it's facilitated properly, should take approximately 2 hours to complete. There are 3 distinct phases and facilitation styles in the process. This atomic diagram represents the 3 distinct phases as rings that are the essential components of a map. The 4th component is the gathering of people, represented by the Inukshuk in the middle. When all are present, there is enormous power. The first ring of facilitation is collecting stories. This is about helping people to remember their stories, their images, who they are. The focus is primarily on the person the map is for. For the most part, the other participants listen during this phase. The second facilitation ring explores the world of imagination, dreams, and nightmares. Facilitators need to create a space where people can open the possibilities of their dreams and the feelings of their nightmares. Dreams and nightmares are powerful, so people must feel supported and safe to reflect on their dreams and share their nightmares. Everyone participates freely in the 3rd ring of the process as we uncover capacities for action. The pace changes. We create an inventory of items that identify who the person is and what they need, and then work towards a plan of action for the person. Facilitators need to keep the group moving towards action. Specifically, we create a list of the person's strengths, their gifts. We identify what they need to move towards their dream and what those supporting the person need to help them. And finally, we create a detailed plan of action. As I mentioned earlier, maps can be a very personal and intimate process, so it's critical that the right people are invited to participate.
Who should participate in a map? The answer is very simple. People who know the person that we're talking about or the organization we're talking about. You can have lots and lots of people who are observers who have done testing or done something to the person or with the organization. But the only people that can really be participants are people who are engaged actively in the life of the person or the life of the organization.
The other key consideration when organizing a map is the environment. The room itself should have a large flat surface for the graphic. 12 to 16 feet will suffice. We've found boardroom tables to be least effective. We like to organize the participants in a semicircle facing the graphic with the map person in the middle and his or her most ardent supporters closest to them. As with all of our workshops, adding color, music, and food help create a warm, welcoming environment. In producing this video, we were fortunate enough to have the opportunity to film 2 distinct map sessions. In Pontiac, Michigan, we had the opportunity to film Jasmine's map. Jasmine is an 8-year-old girl who lives at home with her parents and sister. She's an active member of her church community and attends Harrington Public School. Her map was conducted to help provide a vision and strategy for her future, both at home and school. Lindsay is a 15-year-old girl, also from Michigan, who lives at home with her parents and older sister. Lindsay is a high school freshman, an honor student, class president, and extremely personable with many, many friends. She's a pianist, an actress, and a classical ballet dancer. Externally, she seems as if she doesn't have a care in the world. But internally, Lindsay has many medical concerns. She spent many years in hospital and will be facing another surgery shortly. She has complex metabolic and immune system problems, which create kidney, cardiac, and neuromuscular issues, as well as hearing loss. At times, these medical issues have caused depression and have contributed to thoughts of suicide. Her map was conducted to help her identify a long-term vision and short-term strategies for when she was feeling depressed. We also had the opportunity to film 2 separate facilitation teams. David Hasbury and Megan Schaff facilitated Jasmine's map, while Jack and Marcia facilitated Lindsay's map. As you watch this training video, we hope you'll learn not only from what you hear, but from what you see. We've intentionally left many of the sample maps clips unedited to demonstrate the pacing, positioning, and patience that experienced facilitators use to their advantage. So let's begin conducting a map session. To begin the session, it's useful to walk the participants through the process and set the ground rules. Let them know how long the session will be, whether there'll be a break, and discuss how the session will be structured. Also, point out that the first half of the session is centered on the person. The rest of the group will participate more actively in the second half. To get the ball rolling, we have a quick warm-up question that sets the stage and gets everyone involved.
We start by asking what's a map because it gets everybody participating and because it demystifies the process. Everyone knows what a map is, from a 4-year-old to a 54-year-old. And we use the metaphor of direction as our starting point and getting everyone on the same page, thinking and being together for the map session.
What we're going to do today is called a map. And so just to get you into what the idea is, if I said the word what is a map to you, what would you say? What would, not about this process, but just the word map, what would it say to you? A guideline? Direction?
Directions to a point.
Let's say that again.
Directions to a specific point.
Okay, directions to a specific point. Great. How about you guys? If you heard the word map, what would you think about?
Like a path to find something.
A path to find something? Good.
Path to locate places.
Okay, path to locate different places, like to find more than one place. How about you, Jim?
Well, my idea of a map is from getting me from Pontiac to Detroit, or from Windsor to Toronto.
Okay.
I look at it as a road map.
It's a way to get from one place to another.
Yes.
When I say the word map, what do you think about? What's a map? Do you know what a map is?
Treasure.
Oh, that's a good one. All right, something that you can find treasures with. Great.
The first element of a map is the person's story, and it's one of the areas where skillful facilitators can make a real difference. Getting started can be difficult. Many people are uncomfortable speaking about themselves, especially when it involves sharing personal details. There's often tension up front as the person formulates their story at a level they're comfortable with.
The key to a map is a person's story, and you begin by simply saying, "What's your story?" Now, that's, for some people, they just explode with energy and off the story goes, and you're going to have a lot of trouble keeping up. For other people, it's a very delicate issue, and you're going to have to tease it out of them gently, and that's where the facilitation dance begins. It may be that the graphic is the key to helping a person break through, because you ask them, what does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? Come and touch it. Do things like that. It may be that it's in words, in eye contact. You have to figure out the dance of the facilitators to loosen people up, to create a safe place for them to tell their story. It'll help if you've had a little time with them in advance, and just to have some idea of the kind of story we're dealing with. It's critical that you give them some boundaries in terms of time, like, well, let's take 15, 20 minutes, so for you to round out your story. And most important, focus on 2 or 3 critical elements, some milestone events in your story. That's what MAPS is all about.
So, well, everybody has some stories about Jasmine. But since her mom and her dad and Jasmine have kind of known each other the longest, we're going to start by hearing some stories from them about Jasmine and where she's come from. And what I'm asking people to think about are stories that help us to know who Jasmine is. So people had an experience of Jasmine at some point. There's a little story that you might have had from, I don't know, a Christmas celebration or a school, a day at school, or some particular little thing that says, this says something about Jasmine. This little incident that we had says something. So we're going to start by hearing from Tamara and Nelson and Jasmine about things that they remember about where Jasmine's come from. So what is her story? So we're going to start with your story over here. You okay? You ready to go on this journey? This is like we're opening the book now. We're going to have a story for everybody to share. And it's going to be fun because we're all going to get to write this story. Sound okay? And can you think about a story too? I think we'll start with your mom and your dad, and then you think about a story from when you were little that reminds you about something, your favorite story or something that you really remember, okay? Okay. Tamara, why don't you go ahead and tell us?
Oh, Jesus. Well, Jasmine was very planned.
She was planned?
She was a very planned, charted baby.
Charted baby?
Yeah, she was charted. And she was born 3 months early, so kind of.
That wasn't
that wasn't the plan, but she was born 3 months early and was really determined to come. So part of her determination started way back in the beginning. Help me out here, honey.
That's okay. You take your time. And when you're thinking about this, think about something that'll remind you of this story. So like you've already used a couple of different ideas, like you said, planned, and you said a chart, and kind of, and this kind of 3-month early kind of thing, but think about things that'll remind you of the story.
Dancing.
Dancing?
Dancing. The weekend before I delivered Jasmine, we went dancing. We went to somebody's ball, and I can't remember if it was the Delta's ball or the Kappa's ball.
Kappa's ball.
It was Kappa's ball. And Jasmine loves music, and she loves to dance. And but we were at this ball, and I remember dancing and enjoying the music.
And that was just before she was born?
That was the weekend before she was born. We was there Saturday, and she was born Monday.
So if we had a couple of people dancing.
I danced her off.
You danced her out. She just got too excited here. It's like, okay, I'm ready now. Get me out there, right, Jasmine? Do you remember a story when you were little? One of your favorite stories? Can anybody help you? Because you can ask for help from your mom, or from Alexis, or Tiara, or your dad. You need some help? Yeah? From who?
What's your favorite television program you like to watch?
Notice the patience David exercised with Jasmine and how he enlisted the help of her father. While the pauses seem long and stressful, they're crucial to allowing Jasmine to open up and, as you'll see, participate fully in her map.
Barney?
Barney.
Oh, why do you like Barney? What does he sing?
I love you, you love me. We're happy and candy. And a gateway card and a gift for me to you. What you saying? Love me too.
Yes, all right. Good girl.
It's a great singer, too. Yeah.
You like music? You do? You like to sing?
So that sounds, we're getting a sense of who Jasmine is when you hear, I mean, I think if somebody else was listening, they'd be picking up on who this person is from what they heard. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure you added?
That she's real close with her sister. Yeah, her and her sister are very close. Alexis is almost like her other half.
They look a lot alike.
A lot of people think they're twins, but
Initially, it's common for the person to start their story with a small, seemingly irrelevant detail. The facilitators must listen closely. While it may be unimportant, it could also be a core element. The graphic facilitator must plan the graphic carefully and must make quick determinations as to the weight and priority of the responses. There's a dynamic tension between wanting to record the story and waiting for key elements. Every idea should be acknowledged by being added to the graphic, but the core elements should take up the prime positions in each section. The process facilitator may have to focus the person occasionally, but generally their role is to stay out of the way and let the person tell their story.
What we want you to do is think about your life and tell us your story, your way, but focus on 2 or 3 things, 2 or 3 events, 2 or 3 milestones, things that were real important along the way.
Okay.
And what I'm going to try and do, I'm going to try and draw a picture of it as we go along.
Okay.
And you got to coach me, because we want the picture to be so you can recognize the story, but I'm going to try and do it in imagery and you tell it in words. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, Linz, tell me about the story of Lindsay.
Well, I was born on November 17th, which kind of sounds kind of formal, but I like to start out with my birth date. 1984, and they thought that I was a really healthy baby, and 10 days later, my mother took me back in because we had to get a test done for something my sister had, and so they just wanted to make sure I didn't have it, and I had pneumonia. And I was sick from up till about 3, and from 4 to 5, like my early age, till about probably 8. I was probably not healthy as a horse, but I wasn't like sick where I was in bed.
Some of the procedures that they would do were pretty invasive. She lost, it took a lot of blood and they ran a lot of intravenous lines, and on a little kid, you know, it's not too long before they have a hard time finding a place to put it in, so they would poke many times, and that was rough duty, watching your daughter get stuck, and a couple times holding her down while they do that, and you know, have her tell you, Dad, that hurts, and yeah, it did. So.
7th grade was very difficult for me. I was suicidal, almost. I didn't commit suicide, but I was very close to it. Very difficult time for my life. I felt like I lived in a world where it was just me, really. And I think I know my mom and my father knew what was going on, but at that time we really didn't know what to do, I think.
By the time she was 3 or 4, we had almost lost her a number of times in the hospital. So we'd gone through a number of nights where we were told she probably wouldn't be around in the morning, and of course she was. So I know for me there is a huge piece of the relationship of the two stories, in that in 7th grade, when she then was contemplating not thinking she wanted to live, I vacillated between wanting to kill her myself because we had put so much energy into keeping her alive. The whole family and our whole configuration for probably the first 5 years of Lindsay's life had to be spent in just really trying to maintain her physical body to stay alive.
I think the tears are more sad that how she's feeling has to do with me and what I'm doing and what I'm not doing.
But it doesn't have to do with...
Well, it has to do with me. It's not intentional, and I know you know that, but...
When the facilitator positions themselves closely to the participants and at eye level, they can relate much more intimately.
Well, that's what the plan for action is for.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to solve everything now. Right now, we just, I think, suddenly Callie becoming ill has something to do with the way you just said you were feeling. And that's just the way it is. We don't have to solve it. Yeah.
Okay, so let me see if I can recap Lindsay's story. Chapter 1, or 1, 2, and 3, however. Okay. So way back in '84, there was a perfect little girl born, only it turned out a few days later that there were some strange things going on.
At the end of each segment, it's useful for the graphic facilitator to summarize each section using the graphic. It's also a good idea to check with the person to ensure that the section is complete and accurate.
In and out of 6 and into 8 of in and out of the hospitals, but there was 3 years.
When was the last time you shared a dream with others? In a pragmatic world, dreaming is not something we do a lot of. The facilitators may have to encourage the person to open up and dream freely. Some people dream tiny and will need encouragement to dream big. Sometimes other participants can help clarify the dream, but it must originate with the person.
Dreaming is the most misunderstood question in the MAPS process. What we want is for the dream to be not realistic and unrestrained, and very often people want to restrain it and make it realistic. What you want to remember is that in the seed of whatever the person says, whatever images come out, is the direction for the entire map. MAPS is about restoring dreams to people. And if the history is the key to the map, the heart of the map is the dreaming question.
Believe it or not, we've done we haven't done all the hard work yet, but we've done a fair bit of it. We've got your story. And that's that's one part of this roadmap we're going to do. And we're going to end up with you in the middle. What a surprise. But over here, we're going to ask you to deal with 2 questions. And pretty much you've sort of touched on them, so this may not take too long, but what we want you to do is think about 2 things. One is, what's your dream?
I really want a big house and pond and trees and such, because that I could give people to live a community who are not very wealthy and want a place to live. I'd like to have a hospital nearby. I know that sounds crazy. And
Excuse me, I thought we had judges' wigs off.
I know, but I still...
Nothing's crazy. It's your dream.
Okay.
Okay.
And the reason why is a lot of unwealthy people who homeless do not or cannot afford hospital care in Michigan. So I'd like to be able to do that. I'm not saying that I want to live in Michigan, but that's just the example I'm using.
Okay, now this hospital, do you own, is this a private hospital that you've built?
Yeah, I built and I paid the doctors, and I mean, if other people came to me and they needed help, I mean, sure it could be arranged, but
okay.
Something I want. And big child care. Ooh, love child care.
Big child care. Now wait, is there another building?
Yeah, and it has like big playground, big everything. And you know, to child, big means the biggest, I mean, how big it is how cool it is. So
okay.
I like that kind of stuff. And I want a college and a schoolhouse nearby. For college, for people who are not able to afford to get a job and need a job to get back on. And a school for the kids' families.
Okay, so you've got a hospital, you've got childcare, you've got a college, you've got this huge house.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost the cars.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that was a big thing. And I mean, not that I'm that up on cars, but what kind of cars?
Oh, 2002 Trans Am. I'd have to say, oh, puke orange.
Puke orange.
I don't know if I can do a Trans Am, but what big car?
Oh, it's a nice car with the, I mean, got the little motor scene down the middle.
Pardon?
Got the little motor scene down the middle. I don't even know how to say it.
It's a muscle car.
Oh. And then...
It's a go-fast car.
Well, you said it was to help, you wanted to help people, and there was a real children's theme. So how do we get the children in then?
Yeah.
I say like maybe like little bouncy balls.
Why don't you do it? Why don't you
Little
draw some
bouncy
stuff?
balls?
When in doubt, the facilitators may ask the person to draw their own images or graphics. It's very effective to use and interact with the graphic.
Okay, bouncy balls.
Dreams are symbolic. They're metaphors, and they're rarely completely accurate and perfect. With a little interpretation, it can be relatively easy to put the metaphors into real terms. Take Lindsay's dream, for example. While she dreams of a white mansion to provide medical and social services to people, underneath the words is the theme that she would like to work with or run a modern facility to help people. Regardless of the specifics, there is a theme and an attitude in a dream that will provide a direction to work towards.
But what we've done is we've started a journey. And we kind of come from, this is where she's come so far. These are some of the things. Obviously, we can't get everything, but these are some things that kind of tell us about who Jasmine is. And they kind of give us a sense of who she is. So Jasmine, you know what we're going to do now? We're going to jump way over here. And we're going to dream about the future and all the things that you want to see and you want to do and you want to have. And you don't have to worry about money, and you don't have to worry about time. So some things stay the same. So, do you remember some of your dreams about things that you want to have happen in your life, or that you want to do, or that you want to be?
Tell Mommy what you want. A firefighter.
A firefighter. Wow. So you'd like to be a firefighter?
Yeah.
What would be a good symbol for that? What would be a picture that we could put up on the paper that would remind you about being a firefighter?
With a hat.
With a hat.
Yeah, the hat? The helmet, the one with the red one with the brim that comes down to the red hat?
Yeah.
Yeah. The red helmet, the red firefighter helmet.
And I want a bike.
You want a bike?
A purple bike.
A purple bike. A two-wheeler? Or a three-wheeler?
A three-wheeler.
A three-wheeler. A three-wheel bike. How you doing with that?
In observing Jasmine's dream, many people may have the tendency to discount or block her dreams as unrealistic. Never constrain a dream. Look hard to see the seeds in the dream that can be nurtured. It sets direction in your life.
I'm not gonna walk with no walker.
Oh, you're going to walk without the walker?
Walk out with it.
So if we put a walker with a sign on it that kind of said, not going to use a walker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to walk on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah? What are some places you'd like to go?
I would like to go to the mall.
Yes, my girl.
You'd like to go to the mall? I bet you're going shopping. Is that what it's...
I would like to go to the party. I would like to go to McDonald's. I would like to go to this. Oh.
Did you say a disco?
I did.
What about when you're an adult? Who would you like to have around you? Who would you...
My sister.
Yeah? So you're going to be...
And my daddy and my mom.
What do you think? How about other people? Are there things that you've heard Jasmine say that she wants to see or do or have happen in her life that she didn't say so far?
She wanted to be a doctor.
Ah, a doctor and a firefighter.
Yeah.
She's going to be busy.
I mentioned earlier that one of the two hard and fast rules of a map is to complete each and every step. The nightmare segment is often skipped over and minimized. It doesn't have to be long and drawn out, but it must be dealt with and it must be recorded.
The nightmare question is uncomfortable, especially for the facilitator. Do not avoid it. Do not gloss over it. It's absolutely essential to the process. It's the same as the dream in the opposite direction. So the dream tells us where we want to go. The nightmare tells us what we want to avoid. By having the 2 points, we have clarity on direction. One of the other aspects is that as people tell their story, often they will talk about their dream and identify the nightmare. The facilitator's job is to be very, very clear about that, to be sure that the clarity of the dream and the clarity of the nightmare by naming it is included.
You know what a nightmare is?
No.
How about you ever have a bad dream?
Sometimes.
It makes you feel kind of, how do you feel?
But, last night I did.
You did? No.
But last night I did.
You did?
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, how did you feel?
He slapped me and I had to go in the hospital.
So you had to go in the hospital? And were you scared? What were you afraid of?
He was gonna slap me again, and my mommy and daddy wasn't in there with me.
So being alone without your mommy and daddy in a hospital?
And my sister.
And your sister wasn't there either?
No.
No. So that was scary. Yeah.
So you didn't want to get a shot without the mommy and daddy in there? No pokies, right? That's mommy and daddy there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So being left alone in a hospital by yourself is a scary thing. For your mom and dad, do you know of other things that kind of nightmares or bad things? We talked about all the good things, but what are the things that are scary that you just wouldn't want to see happen?
Being alone. Just not even in the hospital, but just being alone, period.
It's interesting to note that just about all of the nightmares people have expressed over the years have to do with feelings of isolation, exclusion, or loneliness. It's a very common theme. It's just expressed differently.
When you look at that picture, that says, wow, that is my dream.
Yeah. It's just, I worry that I won't be able to achieve it.
Oh, now we're into the nightmare.
Well, I am.
Okay, we'll move right there. So I want to spend a little time on this because, some people are real nervous about asking this question, and it's a key question.
Okay.
And I don't want to run away from it.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So start with what you just said. I'm really scared.
Yeah, I'm really worried that I won't be able to achieve this because this is a really big dream, and even if, I don't know, for me, it wouldn't be the same if I was working in a little soup kitchen serving soup to people. It's gotta have my own thing, gotta have the territory, and be able to say, yes, I organized this, and I really spent the most money on it, and I don't know, money is a big factor in me, and I worry that I'll be caught up in it too much.
Caught up in the money, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
where I just worry about money and nothing else. I worry that, I don't know. I mean, those are that I lose my circle of friends, that I live that nightmare of losing circle of friends.
If you lost that, what would then that look like for you?
Me, and like these little orbit circles all around that should be filled with people and just dead.
Just dead.
Nobody's there.
Right.
And so I'm kind of living without them.
What does it look like when there's nobody
You
there?
want me to draw it?
Yep.
Yeah, that would be great.
Just kind of see the top and then.
And it fits perfectly with what she's saying. Absolutely.
And there's nobody on it.
Right.
And are you in the middle?
Yeah, that's just me.
Sign in.
What do you mean?
That's you in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that looks like the happy name. That's bad. Well.
Let's stay with this for a bit. Okay, I don't want to run away from this. This is because it flows. What you're doing, it's just amazing to me how what often takes us forever to get with adults. You're just flowing can you hear the theme in everything you're saying from there to there?
I want community.
And the nightmare is?
No community.
So for us, the real purpose of this is to help people avoid their nightmare and get to the heart of their dream. And it's not about how many cars, or it's about the theme of the dream, which is
help people.
Helping people. That's your dream. So everything we do, we want to do to try to get you into that dream and out of the nightmare. Okay? So the rest of the map is going to be coming up with who you are, what your gifts are, and then how together we can go plan even more how to help you get there. How are we doing so far?
Fine.
Is it going okay? Anything missing?
Nope.
It's fabulous. Are you surprised at anything?
No, not really.
So far, no?
No.
You like it?
No, but I don't like any. I seriously, maps are beyond my comfort level, so this is not something that.
It's well, it wasn't supposed to be comfortable.
Right, and so
it's good. It's a learning experience, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people think, oh, kids, teenagers, it's too much for them. I don't believe it. You're doing great. I'm glad you're uncomfortable. Have a seat.
The next step marks the halfway point in the process. You should normally be about an hour into it with about an hour left to go. If you feel the group needs a short break, now is the ideal time. Up to this point, the process has focused almost entirely on the person. The remainder of the session is action-oriented and involves all the participants. The tempo will even change noticeably. Go with it. Keep it energetic and moving.
The who is the person question, or who is the organization, is basically the brainstorming part of the MAPS process. Everybody gets involved. Everybody should throw in their thoughts. And you notice we didn't say, tell me what's good about the person, or tell me all the bad things. It's just the who is David, or who is Jack, or who is Nimi, or who is Chan. The main thing is get it all out, and there should be a rich list generated that gives us a portrait of this person or this organization.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to pick up the pace now, and we're going to move into here. And what we want to do is remember where we've been, where Jasmine's been, and this is all about who she is and where she wants to go and what she wants to avoid in her life, her nightmare. So we want to figure out, what does she have to take with her? So we're going to do this by asking all of you, and we're just going to go around and around and around until we run out of things to say. But what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to think of one word to describe who Jasmine is. Words that you would use. So we're just going to get going. So what's the first word?
Independent.
Independent. And you're going to have to be real quick here there. Independent.
Determined.
Determined.
Cheerful.
Cheerful.
Loving.
Loving.
Helping.
Helping. Is that good? What's a word about Jasmine?
Caring for her.
Caring for her? Good.
Energetic.
Energetic.
Apologetic.
Apologetic. What would you say?
No. Helping.
Helping? That's you. You're a helping person? Great. What's another word? Well-mannered.
Now you got me.
Okay, we'll pass. What we're going to do is just keep it going. So if you don't have one when we come by, you say pass and we'll move on. Okay, I'm going to ask her mom and her dad first, and you too, Jasmine, if you could just tell me 3 words from that list, what would be the 3 words that you'd pick? And that would be for the 3 of you to think about that. And everybody else, I want you to think of 1 or 2. And when you do that, we're going to get you to come up with a marker, and you circle the words that are your choice. Okay? So whenever you're ready, you can come and pick your color, and you can come up and do it. And you can circle, if somebody else has already circled that word, feel free to circle it again. Because what that's going to show us is that we have a lot of people who are thinking the same thing. So that's totally fine. Okay?
Once the group has exhausted the list of attributes for the person, we like to determine the 3 or 4 key words that best describe that person. You can do this any way you'd like: voting, placing stickers on the graphic, or, as David has done, circling the attributes.
So, what we've said here is that if we could only say a few things about her, these are what we would want people to know about her. She's independent, excitable, determined, a hard worker, nice, cheerful, diligent, stubborn, well-mannered, spiritual, and prayerful. And those were ones that a few people thought about. She's daddy's baby, she's even-tempered, and she is musical.
The underlying objective of the gift segment is to refocus energy for action. It's a momentum builder, and despite feeling a little embarrassed by all the positives, it really does help the person to feel strong and valued. 99% of the responses will come out right away. You don't need to dwell on this section. Get them out and move on.
The next question is, what are this person's unique gifts, talents, contributions? Why we ask this, it's a second cut at who is this person, but it's really, really focused on their capacities, because the whole MAPS process is about strengthening community. And community relationships are reciprocal. It's we give something to each other. So we're focusing on what unique strengths, capacities, gifts does this person have to contribute to their community.
What are Lindsay's particular gifts to the world? Oh, she's got one. Callie, oh, I agree. I understand that.
Listener?
Listening. Or listener. She's a listener.
Supporter. But sort of innate. Like she just knows.
She's an innate supporter.
Yes, she knows when she needs to be doing it and knows what to do. Musician.
Musician.
In many different instruments.
Mm-hmm. Certainly dancing, my goodness. I've seen you. Mm-hmm. That's something. That would be a gift.
Many of her qualities are gifts also.
Yeah.
Especially her honesty.
Yeah, some of those inside words can also come
to the outside.
To this round. JP, nothing? We can repeat what?
A leader.
A leader. So how does that make you feel, seeing that?
I don't believe a lot of it, but I wish it was true.
Okay.
Like that kind of thing.
Well, sometimes you gotta listen to what other people think, you know?
Oh, but then it goes to my head, and then I just have a big head.
Okay.
Well, you could just sort of live with.
Just enjoy it.
Just enjoy that. That's what some of your people that you invited think of who Lindsay is. Mm-hmm. Okay.
The needs segment is a transitional step that moves from fact-finding to an action plan.
The next question is about needs, and really it's in 2 parts. One part is, what does a person need? What does this person need to do to be able to move away from their nightmare and toward their dream. And that's what do they need in materials, what do they need to be able to do. And the other half is for the support circle, for those of us gathered. What do we need to be able to support them on that journey? What do we need to do? What information do we need? What materials do we need? That kind of thing. This leads logically. It's a brainstorm toward an action plan of what are we going to do to move away from the nightmare and toward the dream.
What is Jasmine going to need if she's going to get to here? What is if she's going to get this van, and she's going to get this guitar, and she's going to have these children, and she's going to be walking, and she's going to be a teacher or a firefighter or a doctor, and she has her family around her, what's she going to need to get there, given what she already has going for her? What else is she going to need? Anything else that you can think of?
Community support,
Community
church.
What? A good education. What do you think that means?
So she should go to high school.
She needs to be able to go to high school, right? Good.
Somebody to talk to, like
Good
friends, if you can't talk to
She's
your
gonna,
parents or something.
and she's going to need friends or parents, people that she can talk to about what she wants.
She can walk.
She's going to need to walk, right? Tiara? Nothing else?
She's gonna need a husband if she wanna be a mom.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably gonna have to happen.
Never master.
She's gonna
She's going to need a husband?
A good one. Faithful husband.
With lots of money.
A good, faithful husband with lots of money. Let's be specific now. Now, switch this question around. What do we who care about Jasmine need to help her to get there? What do we need to help her?
Support.
Support?
To help her get there so she could drive a car or van.
Yeah, so what do we need to do? What do we need to have?
Patience.
We need patience.
Understanding.
Understanding.
Understanding. Stop having attitude.
Stop having an attitude.
We need to know about resources.
Right.
We need to know about other resources that are available for us.
The purpose for expanding the needs from the person to those who are willing to support them is critical. In the past, we used to focus exclusively on the person's needs. We found that this easily slipped into blaming the victim. Now, not everyone participating in the session will choose to be involved on an ongoing basis, but for those that are, there are many things they may need to be able to provide effective support. It may be as straightforward as finding a financial planner or information on a computer technology, or it may be something the support group needs from the person. Needs can be reciprocal.
Partly, what do you need, and what do we need to do to be sure that this group of talents goes in that direction and doesn't slip off the main track? So what do you need to stay on track?
I feel like I need support from my family. I need like the compliments almost. This is relating back to a baby, but their kiss, their love, their mom and dad and their sisters or whatever, their siblings change their diapers. I mean, a baby pretty much depends all on you, and I need the same love a baby gets almost.
Well, for me and Mom and Dad, what are actual things that we can do? I heard you say compliments.
Yeah, compliments, hugs. I mean, it's fun to be picked on, but there's a time when to stop, and I don't always like being picked on. I would say, I don't know, just sometimes sit down for dinner and not talk about apps, not talk about school, just talk about life. I mean, I feel like that's a lot of what This.
This is what separates out when this works and when it doesn't work. Because now we're not into sort of motherhood statements. We're into, I would like you all to give me more compliments. I would like you to tease me less, even though you think it's fun. It's not. For me, I would like you to hug me more. Now, I don't think they're all freaking out.
Can we see? Even that's hard to say, and it's really good. But the more specific you can be, the more helpful it's going to be.
The action plan is the time for the facilitators to ensure that something positive and concrete comes out of the session. We like to encourage facilitators to ensure that at least one step of the action plan is taken within 24 hours and another within 1 week. For a plan to be followed through, it must be detailed. You need to determine what needs to be done, by whom, and when. If possible, build in follow-ups. Have participants enroll in the action plan by writing their own steps on the graphic or by signing off on the action plan. If the action plan is truly meaningful, many of the steps will be completed.
The plan of action is the finale of the MAPS process. And what we hope happens is that a concrete, tangible plan emerges in the direction of the dream and away from the nightmare.
If this is who she is, and this is what she has to offer, and this is what she needs, and we've listed what we need, what do we need to do to get those things met? What do we need to do to meet the needs of finding patience, perseverance, being thankful, tolerant? What does making sure that she's protected, making sure that she's supported? What do we need to do?
Kind of like a team involvement with the parents, the school, the community resources to get together once in a while and talk, okay, this is what we have, where can we go?
It's great. So we need to have a team of people who get together to make sure we're all on the same page and we know where we want to go. And we're working together.
Share this at our next IEP.
Okay, so we need to share this at our next IEP.
I'm going to put you in the driver's seat here a bit. Okay. I'll coach. Okay. Can you tell them a little bit on this stuff? The support theme has really come bouncing out to us like a brick, a good brick, that you need support. But let's not make this into, I need support. What I want to now say, from each of these people here, I will sit down here. Okay, I'll be specific. I need for you, I'm going to be real here. I need for you to email me at least once a week. You do it intermittently. Okay, but I need your support once a week with one of your outrageous suggestions. Blare your music loud, whatever you do. I need a once a week support email from you. Will you do that?
Yes.
See, what we're doing now is we're actually changing the rules ever so slightly because we focused on, so what do we need to do? And we're getting very, very focused into not general stuff, but what are we going to do so that you get the support you need, so that you get to live your dream instead of your nightmare. So this takes, there's no mushy, gushy, sloppy stuff here. It's Marcia's inventing one possible action, which is you're going to email her once a week. And you can negotiate about it, but that's a plan.
I need, from you, I really need some compliments, and maybe I just don't ask enough for them, but what you think is very important to me. You really make a big difference in my life, and I like to hear it when you give me compliments. It really makes me feel like I'm a good person almost.
This ends the formal steps of the MAPS process. We've found a quick summary is a valuable way to close the session.
At this point, it's a great opportunity for one of the facilitation team to just do a nice summary and be sure we've got all the bits and everybody's on the same page. It's a great idea to use the graphic as part of the summary because it's a good way for the person to be able to check and see if we've missed anything critical. Even at this stage, we might find missing bits. So it's a really nice thing to notice where we began a couple of hours ago. And a quick run through in the story and notice the dream and the nightmare and the kind of capacities that we've noticed in this amazing person that we've spent this time with. And then to review those steps, what are we actually going to do now? And be sure everybody's very clear on that because we don't want any slippage at this point. It's the time to put the map in action.
And the very, very last thing we do is to ask everybody present, including the facilitators, to just give a word or a thought of how was the process. Was it boring or was it helpful? Was it wonderful or was it confusing? And that gives us our evaluation in terms of how we all did in putting this map together for the person or for the organization. How is it?
Good.
What does it say to you? Wow.
My dream.
It's very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
You did a really it's very powerful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now we have to ask all of these people to give us just sort of a word to sum up how it was for them. Danny, what a word or a phrase or an image of how this was for you?
Surprising.
What was surprising?
Her past. It was surprising and it was insightful.
Okay, thank you. It was great having you. Well, Clark?
It's always revealing. Maps always seem to peel stuff off. And, I guess it's always an honor to be in one, particularly for someone you care about an awful lot.
So revealing. That's a real good one for this. Callie?
It's hard to pick one word.
Yes.
Certainly eye-opening, moving, and I feel very blessed to be a part of the map of Lindsay's life, of the family, just sort of coming away with a feeling of, yes, I am incredibly blessed.
Let's go to JP. We'll save your mom for last.
First. I'm going to say definitely in-depth and big. Especially for someone of 15, I would say it's pretty big.
That's true. I forgot she's on. Sometimes I forget you're 15. You know, wow. Bryn?
Lindsay's very complex. And I sometimes still fool myself thinking that I understand her better than I do. So I suppose that's my own way of saying revealing.
Revealing.
Yeah, because there's definitely things I just didn't know.
So everybody think about some words to say how you felt about how this went today.
Inspired.
Inspired?
Informative.
Informative?
Important.
Important? Cute. What's that?
It's too much stuff.
It's too much stuff. Too much stuff. What?
Well, it's given me more information about how people feel about my daughter. It's getting a lot of knowledge from it. And also getting to know who my daughter is.
Yeah.
Some things I found out that never thought about before.
As I hope you've observed, MAPS is a very powerful tool, but it's important to be aware of what it can and can't do. MAPS isn't a cure. It does not, on its own, solve problems. What it does is provide a benchmark for reflection. It's an ongoing process and it needs to be revisited. But perhaps the best way to describe the process is as a catalyst for change. Great momentum can be generated from the maps, which can in turn create great things.
MAPS is one of a family of person-centered planning tools that we've been privileged to be involved in. We began with circles of support, something that focused on relationships and community building. That led naturally, as we listened to stories, to listening faster with MAPS, which focused on the story. Sometimes you'll notice that the story gets too convoluted with all the information that we gather, and we evolved into yet another tool, PATH, which cuts through to action. You'll have to determine which you need. But to build a community, you need relationships, which means circles of support. To learn direction and get clarity on the story, you need MAPS. And if it's complex and you need to cut to action, you need PATH. We hope these tools are helpful to you.
How do you know that a map, quote unquote, worked? Well, if it feels like a map and it looks like a map, then it's a map. That means it's colorful, it's creative, and it makes a difference to somebody's life. It also means that it's about relationships and it's about community building, so people leave together not feeling alone. Because as we began this, let's end it. It's about together, we're better.
Feel